And there were some interesting questions here. One of them is, when did humans first begin hunting? Because to hunt is one of our ancient urges, and we've done it for a long, long time. But when we first start, when did we get up in the morning and say, I'm going to kill that antelope over there? The answer is we don't know. It looks very likely that our very earliest ancestors were very good at scavenging. If you had a group of lions killing some antelope, if the lions went away or were chased away, the humans would jump in, grab limb bones and meat, go away, and leave the rest to the hyenas and other animals. So scavenging from kills probably was where hunting began. But there were a number of things which are interesting. One is that the very earliest human beings walked on 2 feet. This meant that they could run, that they were relatively fast. And it has been suggested that the first animals that we hunted were smaller antelope, which you could literally run down. Because one of the big problems with hunting is that one has to get really close to them. You're not talking about semi-automatic rifles or guns which fire for 3 miles. You're talking about getting so close to the animal by good stalking that you can go like this and touch it. And literally, many of the early hunters jumped on the backs of animals and killed them by stabbing them through the shoulders. Now, the weapons they had, obviously a very early one was the stone chopper. You make those by chopping jagged edges on pieces of lava and other fine-grained rocks. But the other one is the spear. And the spear is basically a pointed object. And it was sharpened, we know, by flaking wood to sharp points, maybe hardening it in fire, because a very early weapon that hunters had was fire, because they observed natural brush fires, and they would pick up embers and carry them, and eventually they would cook their food, which is a major advance. So you've got a reservoir of possible solutions. But for thousands of years, the big issue with hunting was, how do you get close enough to an animal to kill it? And you're talking 10 feet, 20 feet. And a great deal of meat must have been scavenged. They obviously took meat when they can get it from recent animal kills. They would get hold of animals that got stuck in swamps or something like that, or they may even build holes so animals went into them. Because one of the interesting things fairly early on is that it was quite a range of different animals that they hunted or ate, including quite large ones. And there really was million years or more of what you would call scavenging stroke hunting. It wasn't really until about 300,000 or 400,000 years ago that you get people really hunting. And we know about this from a fascinating site in a coal quarry in northern Germany called Schöningen. And there they have excavated a series of 3 hunting camps by the side of a lake. And it's clear that they've got the bones of the animals and everything. It was clear that these people hunted in groups, and they would kill wild horses, which are not easy to kill. And they must have been much more adept hunters than the earlier people. But what they had was superior communication skills. They were faster on their feet, and their weaponry included spear points of stone, which could be bound and fixed on wooden stakes, which gives you much better penetrating power. If you penetrate the skin and the wound, it is less likely to come out, for example. But the range was still a problem. We didn't solve the problem of range, really solve it, until the 19th century, when the rifle came in. I mean, you talk about Napoleonic Wars or the 7 Years' War, the rifles they used there, 100 yards maybe.
What about bows and arrows?
Bows and arrows go back into the late Ice Age. We don't exactly know when. Probably the earliest ones were produced in tropical Africa. But if you look at a bow and arrow, they are basically propelled by a piece of wood and a bowstring. And the range that they could achieve with this was not enormous, maybe 50 feet. But the real issue was the velocity and the accuracy of the weapon. It is known, or we know from just seeing it, that many ancient hunters, and indeed the San hunter-gatherers of Africa today, are astonishingly skillful with bows and arrows. And they'll fire an animal on the move. They will fire 2 or 3 arrows very accurately in a short period of time, simply because they're carrying the arrows. But the skill required to do this is something you acquire from a very young age. The big revolution in bows came in 3 ways. One was development of the composite bow, which is much more powerful. The second is the ability to hunt with a bow and arrow from the back of a horse. And the people who first did that were the Mongolians, the Mongols, and they were brilliant at it. And then the third one was the crossbow, which is basically bow and arrow, which is sort of cranked and you point it. It's heavy and clumsy, but it has superior range and power. But these tools were the basics of hunting right up until round figure, Roman times and later. But make no mistake, some of the bows and arrows they developed were amazing. The longbow, which was used in medieval Europe in battle, was an amazing weapon. That really killed people. So the background of hunting for modern humans goes way back.